Brakti Yahawa, Brakatha, Yahawashah, Brakti Yahawa, Brakatha, Yahawashah Bashem, Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles, the elders. Salutations to you, sincere brothers teaching in truth and in sincerity. This lesson will be entitled Another Yahawashah. Lord will, you are edified. Source, Newsbreak. Article entitled Priest argues that Yahawashi died after dislocating his shoulder from carrying the cross. Lord will, you are edified. The literature present in the Bible states that Yahawashi had died from a Roman soldier's spear that reached his heart and made him bleed out, and this is incorrect. However, one priest believes that the cause of death was not from the spear, but from a wound created while Yahawashi was carrying the heavy cross on his shoulder. The Reverend Professor Policinio, based in London, has written a scientific paper about his theory, and theory means what? Your ideal, okay? And published it in the Catholic Medical Quarterly. And I quote, "The shoulder was pulled so far out of its socket that the right hand stretches 4 inches lower than the left. This paper postulates that over the course of 3 hours, the subclavian artery became abraded, injured, and its wall attenuated until finally the artery ruptured and profuse bleeding ensued." This man is teaching another Yahawashi based on an ideal that he received from Satan. 2 Corinthians 11:4. "For if he that come preach another Yahawashi whom you have not preached, or if you receive another spirit which you have not received, or another gospel which you have not accepted, you might well bear with him." Meaning what? To go against. All right? Starting with the apostles of Great Millstone. When people put out bullshit, you have countless videos correcting that bullshit. And this is because of the spirit of Yahweh Bashem, Yahawashi. Yahawashi died from complications of the crucifixion. Okay? Second source, apu.edu. The science of the crucifixion, and science means what? To know. Each year, C. Schreier, PhD associate, professor in the Department of Biology and Chemistry, presents a special lecture on the science of Mashiach's crucifixion. Okay, she details the physiological processes a typical crucified victim underwent and teaches her students to see Mashiach's death on the cross with new understanding. Case in point. Pilate orders Yahawashi to be flogged as required by Roman law before crucifixion. Traditionally, the accused stood naked, and the flogging covered the area from the shoulders down to the upper legs. The whip consisted of several strips of leather. The whip consisted of several, Salaki, I just read that. I'll read it again. The whip consisted of several strips of leather. In the middle of the strips were metal balls that hit the skin, causing deep bruising. In addition, sheep bone was attached to the tips of each strip. When the bone makes contact with Yahawashi's skin, it digs into his muscles, tearing out chunks of flesh and exposing the bone beneath. The flogging leaves the skin on Yahawashi's back in long ribbons. By this point, he has lost a great volume of blood, which causes his blood pressure to fall and puts him into shock. The human body attempts to remedy imbalances such as decreased blood volume. So Yahawashi's thirst is his body's natural response to his suffering. John 19:28. But first and foremost, all right, this was all designed by our Father Yahweh. It was set up in the spirit and then it manifested on earth. And I mean everything, but at this point, the focal point is Yahawashi's death, going into the crucifixion. His body's natural response to his suffering, John 19:28. After this, Yahawashi, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, said, I thirst. If he would have drank water, his blood volume would have increased. Roman soldiers placed a crown of thorns on Yahawashi's head and a robe on his back. Matthew 27 and verse 28. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. The robe helps the blood clot, similar to putting a piece of tissue on a cut from shaving, to prevent Yahawashi from sustaining more blood loss as they hit Yahawashi in the head. Matthew 27 and verse 30. And they spit on him and took the reed and smote him on the head. The thorns from the crown push into the skin and he begins bleeding profusely. The thorns also cause damage to the nerve that supplies the face, causing intense pain down his face and neck. As they mock him, the soldiers also belittle Yahawashi by spitting on him. They rip the robe off Yahawashi's back and the bleeding starts afresh. Yahawashi's physical condition becomes critical due to severe blood loss without replacement. Yahawashi is undoubtedly in shock. As such, he is unable to carry the cross, and Simon of Cyrene executes this task. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. Crucifixion was invented by the Persians, okay? And according to the biblical doctrine, Persians are Elamites, all right, so-called East Indians, between 300 through 400 BC. It is quite possibly the most painful death ever invented by humankind. The English language derives the word excruciating from crucifixion, acknowledging it as a form of slow, painful suffering. Its punishment was reserved for slaves, foreigners, revolutionaries, and the vilest of criminals. Victims were nailed to a cross. However, Yahawashi's cross was probably not the Latin cross, but rather a tall cross. The vertical piece remains in the ground permanently. The accused carries only the horizontal piece up the hill. Atop the patibulum lies a sign indicating that a formal trial occurred for a violation of the law. In Yahawashi's case, this reads, "This is the King of the Jews." Luke 23:38, and a superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, "This is the King of the Jews." The accused needed to be nailed to the patibulum while lying down, so Yahawashi is thrown to the ground, reopening his wounds, grinding in dirt, and causing bleeding. They nail his hands to the patibulum. The Greek meaning of hands includes the wrist. It is more likely that the nails went through Yahawashi's wrist. If the nails were driven into the hand, the weight of the arms would cause the nail to rip through the soft flesh. Therefore, the upper body would not be held to the cross. If placed in the wrist, the bones in the lower portion of the hand support the weight of the arms, and the body remains nailed to the cross. The huge nail damages or severs the major nerve to the hand. On impact, this causes continuous, agonizing pain up both of Yahawashi's arms. Once the victim is secured, the guards lift the patibulum and place it on the steeps already in the ground. As it is lifted, Yahawashi's full weight pulls down on his nailed wrists, and his shoulders and elbows dislocate. Psalm 22:14. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels. This makes sense through the Spirit. King David was prophesying Yahawashi's crucifixion. If you can receive it. In this position, Yahawashi's arms stretch to a minimum of 6 inches longer than their original length. It is highly likely that Yahawashi's feet were nailed through the tops, as often pictured in this position. The weight of the body pushes down on the nails, and the ankles support the weight. The nails would not rip through the soft tissue as would have occurred with the hands. Again, the nail would cause severe nerve damage and acute pain, normally to breathe in the diaphragm, the large muscle that separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity must move down. This enlarges the chest cavity, and air automatically moves into the lungs. To exhale, the diaphragm rises up, which compresses the air in the lungs and forces the air out. As Yahawashi hangs on the cross, the weight of his body pulls down on the diaphragm, and the air moves into his lungs and remains there. Yahawashi must push up on his nail feet to exhale, and this caused more pain. In order to speak, air must pass over the vocal cords during exhalation. The gospel note that the Gospels note that Yahawashi spoke 7 times from the cross. It is amazing that despite his pain, he pushes up to say, "Forgive them." We don't understand the definition of spiritual and physical pain, such as Yahawashi, who is the author and finisher of our faith. Luke 23:34. Then said Yahawashi, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they parted his raiment and cast lots. The difficulty surrounding exhalation leads to a slow form of suffocation. Carbon dioxide builds up in the blood, resulting in a high level of carbonic acid in the blood. The body responds instinctively, triggering the desire to breathe. At the same time, the heart beats faster to circulate available oxygen. The decreased oxygen causes damage to the tissues, and the capillaries begin leaking watery fluid from the blood into the tissues. This results in a buildup of fluid around the heart and lungs. The collapsing lungs, failing heart, dehydration, and the inability to get sufficient oxygen to the tissues essentially suffocate the victim. The decreased oxygen also damages the heart itself, which leads to cardiac arrest. In severe cases of cardiac stress, the heart can even burst, a process known as cardiac rupture. Yahawashi most likely died of a heart attack. Okay, so regardless, Yahawashi's death was from complications of the crucifixion. Also, Yahawashi's death, the soldiers break the legs of the 2 criminals crucified alongside him, John 19:32, causing suffocation. Death would then occur quicker. John 19:32. Then came the soldiers and broke the legs of the first and of the other which was crucified with him. Verse 33. But when they came to Yahawashi and saw that he was dead already, they broke not his legs. And this was also spoken of in the Old Testament. That Yahawashi's legs or bones, that Yahawashi's bones would not be broken. Symbolic for what? A perfect sacrifice for the nation of Israel, beginning with the elect of Israel. When they came to Yahawashi, he was already dead, so they did not break his legs, John 19:33. Instead, the soldiers pierced his side, John 19:34, to assure that he was dead. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. So let's read 33 again. John 19:33. But when they came to Yahushua and saw that he was dead already, they broke not his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. Yahushua was already dead before this Roman soldier pierced him. Okay. That is the reason why I said the literature present in the Bible states that Yahushua had died from a Roman soldier's spear that reached his heart and made him bleed out. But according to John 19:34, or Salakia verse 33, but when they came to Yahushua and saw that he was dead already, they broke not his legs, but one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. This was to assure he was dead. In doing this, it is reported that blood and water came out, referring to the watery fluid surrounding the heart and lungs. And guess what? According to the scripture, that Roman soldier will pay for piercing him as well. Revelation 1:7, behold, he, referring to Yahushua, come with clouds, chariots, and every eye shall see him, literal, and they also which pierced him, that Roman soldier, okay? All right, and guess what? This supports what? Reincarnation, and all kindreds of the earth, meaning what? People, shall wail because of him, even so to what? Why? Because Yahushua is bringing judgment to all kindreds of the earth. That's why they will be wailing. Zechariah 12:10, I will pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication. And they shall look on me whom they have pierced. Meaning what? We are, Lord will, okay, we are the hopeful elect, all right? The nation of Israel in the kingdom, all right, of heaven, or the kingdom of Yahushua, is going to witness Yahushua. Okay? Going into how he looked when he was on that cross. Revelation 5:6, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, referring to Yahushua, as it had been slain, meaning what? Once Yahushua died, his spirit went directly in front of the throne of the Most High, Yahweh, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of the Most High sent forth into all the earth. But the focal point, Yahushua as he had been slain, the aftermath of him from that cross. Back in Zechariah 12:10, and I will pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, and they shall look on me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourn for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. So we are going to be very sad yet thankful, all right, for Yahawashi being that beautiful sacrifice for the nation of Israel. But it's going to be heartbreaking seeing him in real time in the kingdom of heaven, of how he looked, okay, because of the aftermath of that fucking crucifixion. And that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem. This is literal, going into the kingdom of heaven. Okay, this day will happen as the mourning of Hadadrimmon in the valley of Megiddo. Verse 12, and the land shall mourn every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart, the family of the house of Nathan apart, and their wives apart, the family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart, the family of Shimei apart, and their wives apart, all the families that remain, every family apart, and their wives apart. But the focal point is, we are all going to mourn, okay? So, Lord will, you edify, shalom.